When the Minister presented his budget vote speech for the 2024-2025 financial year at the National Council of Provinces yesterday, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Parks Tau, said in stabilising the administration and good governance, they're currently reviewing the organisational structure to ensure that it is aligned and optimised to support the department's mandate and prioritised programmes. On the sidelines, the Minister also addressed the media on South Africa's delegation's successes at the African Growth and Opportunity Act Forum, which was held in Washington, D.C. in the United States recently. So to discuss this and other areas of the department, we're joined by the Minister himself, Parks Tau. Minister, so nice to have you. Welcome to the program.
Morning, Leanne, and thank you very much.
So it's 1 month down. How's it been in your portfolio now as the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition?
It's been quite hectic. I mean, we've had to hit the ground running. We've had to engage with issues within the department, and in a very short space of time, had to deal with trade-related matters. As you said, myself and Deputy Minister Whitfield were leading a delegation to the US that were engaging in the AGOA forum, both in the forum itself, but also in bilateral engagements with the congressmen in the US, but also with other stakeholders, including business. On the other hand, Deputy Minister Kodlimpi was representing us at the Trade Ministers Forum for the BRICS Plus countries. So we literally had to hit the ground running and ensure that we put our best foot forward in the shortest space of time.
Yeah, and it is important because this is obviously something that you do need to hit the ground running on. Even yesterday, when you were presenting the budget for 2024-25, the financial year, you said that one of the more significant threats to the economy and job creation that undermines our industrial efforts is the illicit economy. Let's focus on that, and then we'll move on to AGOA and talk a little bit more about it. But this illicit economy that you've been emphasising and talking to is detrimental to South Africa. What measures are being put in place to mitigate this? What are you going to do?
Well, the illicit economy is of particular concern to us, to the revenue services and to the police, and we've had to respond by establishing a task force that is able to respond to these issues. And when you're talking illicit economy, we're also talking about levels of tax evasion, declarations at our ports of entry for goods that are brought into the country, in particular, where such declarations are not done adequately or there's under declaration. And that impacts on our ability to collect the revenue. But also it impacts on trade. It impacts on trade significantly because many of the countries that we trade with do want to know the origins of the products that you're trading in. And to the extent that some of these products come into the country in a manner that's not adequately accounted for, presents challenges to our own trading position as a country. So we need to also be able to respond to that. And the initiative to establish the task force and respond comprehensively between ourselves, ITAC, SARS, and the police is beginning to yield results, but it's something that we need to ensure that we protect our economy from.
Yeah, and very much so. I mean, we heard reports earlier this year. I mean, I can give you examples in all of the sectors, but I mean, British American Tobacco, we saw them earlier this year saying they just are pulling back on South Africa, losing around about 500 jobs at the company because there's just too many illicit cigarettes, as one example, that have flooded the market, and there's just no control that is happening. And in return, the economy loses so much on that. So, I mean, as one industry, the copper industry is another massive problem that we are faced with as well. So, I mean, Minister, there is a problem in almost in every single industry.
There is a problem, and it's a problem that we need to confront head on. We need to protect our economy from illicit activities and therefore promote industrialization. And you used the example around cigarettes. The reality is that these are imported from other countries, and they are not paying the import duties that are supposed to be paid, but they're also not necessarily quality controlled. So it impacts our own industry, it impacts the control systems that we have in the country, and it's something that we need to confront head on. And as a department working with our sister departments, we are committed to dealing with these issues. to the extent that they have a negative impact, both in terms of trade in the country, its industrialization, but in many products, it's also about the health and safety of our people as a country.
If we look at, South Africa's inclusion on the Financial Action Task Force's grey list, and this is a very big problem because this is where we see that South Africa is sitting right on this list, which is, all talking about, some of the most criminal countries and the activities that happen within the country, and South Africa are sitting right in there and have been grey listed. It is a huge priority to get ourselves off that list and sort things out as well. How do we go about this? It's well and good talking about policies, but how do we go about getting ourselves off of this list and making sure that things are now produced properly? Will this public procurement bill perhaps help?
Well, first, I should say that National Treasury has been in the lead in addressing the ITF issues to the extent that they've impacted on our country. It has had to do with matters of regulations. It has to do with putting in place legislation that mitigates certain activities, including the banking sector. And there's been significant progress. The minister has been continuously reporting in the executive about progress with regards to addressing those issues that have impacted us as a country. And I think that we need to be determined to ensure that we're able to deal with these issues and are able to get off the grey list. But it's a process. It's a process, and I think all of government acknowledges that it's a process. To the extent that we as a department have to play an active role in respect of those issues, we will continue to play an active role. Talking about the Public Procurement Act itself, it provides greater clarity on a whole range of procurement-related issues in government, and these would include matters such as localization, broad-based black economic empowerment, matters about processes and procedures in procurement, control systems within the procuring agencies. And we have said that working with Treasury, particularly on those matters that impact us as a department, issues such as localization and broad-based black economic empowerment, we need to be working very close to the Treasury to ensure that there's an all-of-government approach in institutionalizing those mechanisms in the institutions of government across the board throughout the country.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, when you look at numbers, 112 billion rand is what illicit trade costs South Africa. That's an estimate that was given, and that's absolutely frightening in a year. I want to get into this, the signing into law of the Public Procurement Bill. I mean, this law specifically prohibits any person from interfering with or trying to influence any procurement or trying to tamper with any tender bid after its submission or award. Do you feel that this is going to help boost your mandate in the department?
It will, because amongst others, it would introduce levels of efficiencies that we require in government, but it also enables organs of state to develop procurement regulations in line with the Act that enable certain things, as I said earlier, with regards to localization. We're going to identify designated products that necessarily we think should be procured or at least be given a competitive advantage in our economy so that we're able to grow the economy. We're going to have to identify which agencies should be involved and what the mechanisms of implementation should be, and ensure that this is done within prescribed procurement rules as a country. We need to protect the integrity of our supply chain management systems, because when your supply chain management systems are protected, you're able to compete, or rather you're able to trade or procure in a manner that's transparent, but it also makes the goods cheaper because there is less manipulation, or you can eliminate manipulation of tender prices and goods that are being sold into government. And I think that it should introduce greater levels of efficiency and efficiency gains for government.
Let's look at how this Procurement Act possibly can assist local industries in getting a share of the tender and procurement pie. I can see, I mean, I was just going through a couple of the responses to our question. We told viewers that you would be on the show this morning, and that's one of the big issues that they certainly did bring up, amongst others, which I'll address to you as well. But local industry, struggling on cheap imports and problems like this, and also, you know, the bigger guys getting the job as opposed to the smaller guys. You know, all of these kind of things are an issue. Perhaps you want to talk to that as well.
Yes. Firstly, it is about competing against products that are being imported in countries that are subsidizing those specific industries. So sometimes when we're talking about the price of goods and the extent to which the price of goods is impacting local procurement, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that some of these products are subsidized in their own countries. They are produced in special economic zones with all sorts of tax benefits. So those countries are paying a price for those goods to be exported to our country. And we need to answer the question, what price can we pay? What is the price point really to facilitate industrialization and job creation in our country so that our own industries become more competitive against the products that we procure from other countries. And we've identified a number of sectors in which we have to do this so that when we talk about designation, we can be able to say we are designating in these industries for purposes of localization so that our economy is able to benefit, so that we are able to industrialize and we're able to create the jobs. But that has to be done in a manner that's transparent. You need to be able to say in a transparent way whether this is about designating goods to be produced in a special economic zone or designating particular products. You need to be transparent in that designation so that there isn't any manipulation even in those processes.
Yeah. Let's move on to the AGOA forum now. And I know that was also a big part of what you were talking about yesterday, the delegation that went to this forum in Washington, D.C. And the important aspect was that we went in there as the government of national unity now. And this was something that certainly I imagine that the world was interested to know about and to see how it's going to work and the success thereof and the whole talk of renewing. How are you feeling about it? Are you confident that this was a success?
It was a success. We are confident that we communicated a message of, one, a stable democracy. We shouldn't take for granted the fact that after 30 years, this is the first time that you haven't had an outright majority in a government in the country, and that we're able to establish government within a reasonable time period. In fact, reasonable is an understatement here. We're able to establish government, that government is functioning. We're able to ensure that this happens and the transition happens in a peaceful way. It is an important statement that we're able to make about the quality of our democracy and our ability to sustain democracy as a country was an important message that we're able to communicate. But we're also communicating a message that says that we ourselves as a country are not only talking about establishing a government of national unity, we are equally talking about the convening of a national dialogue that would be as a result of intense engagements with various sectors in society towards resetting as a country, considering our own challenges and issues as a country and saying, after 30 years, this is how far we've gone, these are the challenges, these are the opportunities, and how do we reset? And that message was also received positively.
Yeah.
But it was also about communicating with regards to the alignment of AGOA with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and ensuring that AGOA is seen as complementing the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
Yeah, and I know one of the big aims was to try and get something before the end of this year. And many people obviously, feeling that this won't be the case, especially with the US in an election year and a very highly contested one. And we do see that this may in itself bring some challenges. Did you have meetings with different representatives from Democrats and Republicans? I mean, because this is something that needs to be taken into account. I mean, possibility of getting something before the end of this year? Are you optimistic this may happen?
Well, we're holding our thumbs. We are cognizant of the fact that there's an election and that could have a significant impact on how legislators process issues in the US. Of course, I should say that both the Republicans and the Democrats have said that they would want to ensure that there's a speedy passage of the AGOA legislation in the US. notwithstanding the issues that are being raised around AGOA. So from that point of view, there is a commitment. It is in the content and in the processes that are going to be undertaken in the US that we have to place a bit of comfort. But we can't at this point say certainly it will happen before the elections.
Yeah, and also the issue of the 16-year contract, because we know that this one comes up to an end in 2025. 16 years is what's hoped for that this will be extended to. Again, a worry. I mean, you know, in terms of South Africa's political stance on a lot of global issues and, you know, some that the US may disagree with, is there a question mark over South Africa's inclusion in all of this? And are you concerned about this?
Well, with regards to AGOA itself, the notion of South Africa being excluded has actually been withdrawn by those congressmen that had initially raised it on the basis of the initial responses that we've given in the US. So with regards to AGOA in particular, we think that it shouldn't be a factor. Good. There are other issues that have been raised for an out-of-cycle review of South Africa in relation to trade broadly with the US. And this has been passed by the House of Representatives. It's now going to the Senate, and it's supposed to go to the President to assent to the legislation. We're actively engaging with the senators. We're equally engaging with the administration so that we're able to deal with the issues that might not have been clarified adequately at the House of Representatives.
Minister, before I let you go, I need to pose just one question. I know we've got less than a minute to go, but one of the questions coming in, and this is from Siyabulela, and I see it repeated a few times. I hope that you're going to address the issue of heavy export duties and other red tapes to international trade so that our farmers and other producers can easily compete with others. It's one of the issues that was raised, a big one.
We're going to look actively at all trade instruments at our disposal and how we optimize the deployment of trade instruments and tariffs in the country so that we're able to promote export-oriented growth, but also industrialization in our country.
All right, we leave it there. Thank you, Minister. An absolute pleasure talking to you. Good luck. Good luck with everything going forward, and we look forward to many more interactions with you. That was the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Parks Tau, talking to us about a number of issues relating to his department, including, I think the big one that most people are speaking and looking to at the moment is the recent AGOA forum in the United States and the newly signed Public Procurement Act.